All right. Hey guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name's Dave Thurm, and because I took a hint from Pope yesterday, here's all my slides. So if you guys can't read them because I may have spent like 3 seconds on actually formatting this presentation, it may be small, some font may be big, you never know. I'll actually post it again at the end of the presentation. So here's a little introduction about myself. So back in early 2000s, I went to work at Utah Education Network and became Troy Jessup's Padawan learner. He took me under his wing, taught me a bunch of nefarious crap, and we made some very poor life decisions at that time, which we've since repented of and used a little bit more caution. But this is like, we were talking, at this point in the time, Utah had no firewalls. No school in the state had one. I think there was a PIX out at the time. I think we started pushing like PIX 500s, 525, something like that. You guys are old enough for that. Before that, I worked at UVSC. I started off in the help desk, and actually, it's funny because there's several of the help desk guys I started with out here now that didn't escape education. Sorry, guys. And then I worked for the University of Utah in their NOC for a while. So I currently work for Defense Point Security. They are a defense contractor out of Washington, D.C. They handle like $50 million contracts and crazy stuff like that. I am the oddball in the group. I do pro services, and I tend to focus on right now is the blue coat stuff, web proxy, SSL Intercept, full PCAP capture stuff. And whenever you get into that world, they're like, oh, you do PCAP, so I hope you know how to run a storage array network and run Linux and do all the networking, run gigamons. So because of my experience going through, all these different places, you get more of an education than you would have anywhere else. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, like all the hats come to you. I also work with the Illini Cloud, which I presented on probably 5 years ago, maybe. The Illini Cloud was just a bunch of schools. We all got together and said, hey, let's build a cloud. So for like $300 a year, you get a cloud. You get a server with like 2 gig RAM or something like that. So super low cost. It's all on flash now, which cracks me up because we started off with like a petabyte of spinning disk, and now they've just moved it all to flash in the last 2 years probably. So it's crazy fast. K-12 Federation is another project. Started off with a huge nonprofit, gave us some seed money, and now it's collaboration between K-12 throughout like 5 states last time I checked, and they share apps. So rather than everybody develop their own thing, we just develop it as a group. I think Utah may be one of the member states. There was some talk at one time. I also serve on the advisory board for Trevecca Nazarene University in Nashville. My high school buddy who I learned to network on Doom is like, hey buddy, come down to Nashville. Just hang out for a little while, be my IT director at this college. And then he went to work for Trevecca and drafted me into helping figure out how to teach the next generation of IT professionals, which is very daunting if you actually think about it. And because I was Troy's Padawan learner like 50 years ago, I probably can think I can take credit for being the second member of Utah Saint, because it was pretty much me and him. I was on the NOC answering phones, and he was like the one security guy. And I kind of did whatever Troy told me to do because he was doing cool stuff and not answering phones about why my T1's down and stuff like that. So this presentation came to be, I was hanging out with Troy. He's like, we really need some information security 101 stuff. Like, there's a lot of lacking of that. Because I noticed at Saint over the years, we've become like hyper cool, and it's like, we're talking about really advanced stuff. So I haven't really dumbed it down. I've given you guys in this presentation the stuff that I forget I do that'll help you guys a lot. So I went to a conference, DEF CON, probably like DEF CON 10s. And me and Bryce Coons and our brother Jake, we're all walking to this presentation, and the guy starts talking about VLANs. So we all get up and we leave. We're like, oh, this is going to be horrible. So I decided, hey, I'm just going to show you guys everything we're going to cover. You can decide if you want to bail or not. because some of this will be entry, like basic stuff, or like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. I don't know if we can give feedback or not, but if you guys have like a burning question and want to yell it really loud, I'll take questions. But I want you guys to be able to go home and implement stuff. Oh, back. So there's nothing super sexy in this. Honestly, you guys all know the red team gets all the glory and they get to tell all the great stories. But always remember, they're the ones writing reports every day for like 80% of their time. So is it really that sexy? No. We actually have to get crap done. So I asked Bryce, I'm like, Bryce, what are you talking on? He's like, cloud stuff. So if you guys caught his Azure blue teaming or whatever he was talking about yesterday that went over my head, that's cloud stuff. So something else I'm going to tell you. So as a pro serve guy, I like to go into my customers and I document everything I'm going to do at the customer site before I go there because I don't want to look stupid. I forget stuff all the time. I'm like, I'm just going to spell this out. Well, the magic is I go to my customer and I give them this documentation when I leave and say, hey, this is how I set up your entire solution. Well, they love me because they're like, wow, dude, this guy cares, and I teach them how to do what I do because I don't believe there's anything to be gained in not sharing information. And some people say, oh, well, you're giving away your ability to go back and build them. Well, the reality is next version of code comes out, all that stuff changes. So my documentation is dead anyway. So it's good for like 6 months or a year. So I'm going to give you guys in here, I'm trying to give you as much documentation as I can on actually how to do it yourselves when you leave here. And I'm going to try to go back and update these slides with actually more detail when time permits and I quit playing video games and screwing around. If you guys are new to the industry, or if you're just veteran, this is what I do, man. I bought a Palo Alto on CDW's website, no questions asked, for $585. It comes with a year subscription. Each year after that, this is the lab bundle, and I had the model numbers up here, and I took them down, but I probably should have left them. But you guys can go out there and you can order one. It's a $3,000 firewall if you're going to buy it commercially. But if you use it like in your home lab, like I have 2 in my home lab, I think last year Bryce Coons spoke on bypassing a Palo Alto, and he was using my Palo because he's like, I got this idea. So every once in a while you guys get those ideas where you're like, I wonder. And that's why I built this home lab. And I highly recommend everybody do it. It's actually one of my interview questions. I always ask somebody near the end of the interview, I'm like, what's your home lab look like? And most of the time I get, I don't really have time, or I don't blah, blah, blah. And if you don't really have time to study at home, you're going to be left behind. You got to put in those hours. It sucks. Like when I was at the University of Utah, I was trying to become a Cisco dude. Like that was my goal, become really smart, take the CCIE, do all that. That experience studying for the CCIE is a great experience, very, very humbling. You realize how stupid you are. But I'd come in on the weekends, because the U of U, great place, they would buy one of everything they owned. So when they did this, I could simulate anything I wanted in the lab. So I'd go in there and I'd wire it up, and I'd spend all Saturday for 8 hours configuring stuff, or saying, VSS was big at the time, so I started stacking 6500s. And nobody would do that in the real life. I found some weird crap I could do with Class D IP spacing, because I was like, what is up with Class D IP spacing? So I was able to find a way to get that to work in my lab at home. So F5 is a product I support from time to time. I do the LTMs. You can buy their virtual edition for $113, lab edition. Palo Alto actually also makes a virtual edition of their firewall, which is, I think, $120, $150. But look for lab edition when you're going out like CDW, one of the big guys. Like F5, I think you're supposed to actually own an F5 to get the lab edition. But if you go to the website, you can just order it. That's how I did it. vMug Advantage license, this is awesome. So you can get everything in the suite that VMware has. I mean, vCenter, NSX, everything that they have, the vSAN, for $200 a year. Supports one server, unlimited processors. It used to be limited in processors, but I believe the last time I downloaded 6.7, I think it supports all the processors. And then I always put sketchy Eastern European server. If you guys ever want to do anything malicious, Eastern European servers, VPS servers are beautiful. I do investigations from time to time to help a lawyer out. And I had to do one about a, I'll edit this story a little bit. So the husband was sending inappropriate pictures of his ex-wife from Facebook. And he had a restraining order, so I had to go in and prove that he was doing it from a fake Facebook account. So I don't know if you guys have ever used, you obviously use Facebook, that's a dumb question. But you'll find that Facebook logs everything. And if you go trolling your ex-girlfriend, going to visit her from your computer, and Facebook knows that that's you, they will add you as a suggestion to that person, as a friend suggestion because you've been stalking them. So get yourself a nice European proxy server. I bounce off of there. I just do Foxy Proxy, which is in Firefox. Run it through Putty's proxy. I did not cover that in here. I probably should have. That would have been cool to show you guys on how to tunnel all your web traffic out to Europe. And it's nice to get a fresh view without all the remembered stuff that Google and like advertisements and stuff remember your IP address and they fingerprint you. It's a great way for you to get around that. You could use it for nefarious stuff. I use it to be more anonymous. Free training. I assume you guys all know about Splunk. Splunk is the largest SIM in the world, and they print money, and we pay people that do Splunk, like my company. I bet you're probably 90% Splunk people. Huge amount. We're Splunk ProServe Partner of the Year in federal space. But you can go get the entry-level certification for free. So if you guys just want to download it, they have 500 meg log import ingress, like you can put 500 megs worth of logs in for free. If you guys do the certifications, it's a great entry level into that field, and it pays really well. If you're a military gets, I believe, all of their certifications for free, which you'll have to search around. I didn't find that this time, but that's something for you guys to look at. We have the Palo Alto ACE exam, so if you're new to Palo Alto, I would say 80% of the customers I deal with, maybe 70% have Palo Altos nowadays. Seems to be the migration. It'll change in a year or two. I have no preference on what firewall people use because I get paid to fix them all, so I don't care. Something else I was going to recommend for you guys entry level, or as an intro to InfoSec, is in Nashville we have a Splunk meetup every month. We have a VMUG group every month. We have Python meetups. We have out here we have the SAINTCON. And the trick is to make friends. My slides in here were a contribution of a lot of my friends' help. And I'll try to call them out to give them credit for what they've done. But here is some of my quick hints. These are like stuff I do to make my life easier. I'm a network engineer that's how I came up into the world. And so I don't know if you guys have done this, and you're dealing with Cisco stuff. All this stuff's going to be geared towards Cisco. I took a gamble. But I hate the enable password. Everybody, you hate having to type the enable. It seems stupid. So I put in here, all you do is your username, you make up a username, put the privilege level 15, password 0, and bam, there's your password. And as we found out, it cannot be more than 25 characters because this was my Cisco 4500 I have in my lab. I think it's a SUP 5 or something. And I don't know if the newer ones will take more than those characters. But this is me being lazy. Another thing I do is to make life easier is SSH key generation. Like, I want to log into my network devices and I don't want to have to type a password at all. So here's the step-by-step. You just install Putty, you launch the generator, you go in and you guys just set your key strength, and you generate and save the public key. Then you just go in, if you want to add your passphrase, here's the catch. If you add a passphrase here, every time you try to log in with the certificate, it's going to ask you for a passphrase. Security would say do that. I'm lazy, so I don't do it. But then again, I'm not much of a network admin anymore, so I don't do this. And then you just save out your private key. So there's your private key. You open it in Notepad. You guys haven't dealt with certificates. It sucks, and they're all difficult. But go ahead and try to become the expert of certificates. I am still confused by them a lot of time, but knowing public-private keys, server keys versus intermediate keys versus certificate authorities, take a day, see if you can really understand those, and your life and information security will be a lot easier. They're kind of like something we only do and then we forget, but to actually really understand how certificates work is like would be great value to you guys. Anyway, so I just copy this out. Just copy out the key, go back into your conf T, and this I did, Cisco User, put the key string in, and then you create the user, right here my username Cisco User. I create the username Cisco User Privilege, and that's it. You then log in by certificates. So there's no prompting, bam, you just write in, more secure than a password. One of the things Troy had mentioned, and there's actually a network segmentation class coming up, which would probably be really good at too, is it's another 101 track. So a lot of questions we have is like, why do we need VLANs? Like, everybody wants life easy. If you guys are like the system admin guy, your job is to make things work. And it is so, so tempting just to throw it all in one place and walk away. I've been there too. I help out some small businesses, and I'm like, you know what? These guys are fine. But then I repent, and I think about it, and I say, you know what? They probably should not have their domain controller on the same network as the users. And if you guys are doing this, this is all of the commands you need to set up a VLAN. What is there? 5 commands in the Cisco switch. Stupid simple. And the best way to segmentation is who needs to talk to each other. So what I've found, what I do is I put all my users in one VLAN, and I may categorize those. Always remember your students are evil. And never trust them, because after all the stories I've had from like you guys when you were kids in high school, I can only imagine what kids are able to do with Google nowadays. Because we didn't have that. It was word of mouth and poking buttons till it worked. So I always put the users in their same VLAN, separate them out according to role. Wireless access points, same thing. I put them all in their same group. And with wireless access points, how many of you guys' guest network drops right onto the same VLAN your WAP is on? Most people. Most people just set up. With modern controllers and wireless access points, you're actually able to tunnel that traffic all the way back to your access point, or actually your controller. And I always tell people, if you can dump your guest users out into a DMZ VLAN and dump them outside your firewall and treat them like the enemy, like anyone else, it's going to save you a million times. I don't know why I just remember this. About 10 years ago, we had a guy who's ex-employee, comes in to the school, hangs out in the parking lot, logs onto the guest Wi-Fi, had just got terminated from his previous job, goes and compromises his previous employer using the Wi-Fi at the school. And nobody wants the cops showing up to the school district saying, do you have logs? Is there any record? Because they kind of knew who it was because he made his disgruntledness pretty vocal. But we had to be all interrogated by the local cops. Want to know all this information about logging. So avoid yourself the headache. You don't got time for it. So if you can tunnel all your guest access and dump it out the firewall, treat them like an enemy, you're going to be happier. It's going to save you time in the end. Printers, I used to put printers on different VLANs, but then making my life easy, it just wasn't worth it. So I just dumped those in the high range of my users because, yeah, they may print out 10,000 Christmas trees. Like I had a lady do one day, like an 8-foot Christmas tree, all green. And the color laser printer was awesome. But it is what it is. Separate your servers out. Keep them on a separate network. I actually divide mine up according to like use. Like my VMware ESXi boxes, the host, I put on their own network. I put the domain controllers on their own network. If you have a web server, it absolutely goes on its own network, and you treat it like the enemy. Yeah. My Internet of Things. That's probably all going to be coming on to, you mean like guest users, or are you talking about like SCADA systems, things like that? Cameras. Separate those out. So many, many years ago, we had SCADA systems throughout one of the universities, which is like thermostats and things like that. And so I put all the thermostats, all these things that should never be touched. We had money, so I put them all in an MPLS VRF. So they were all segmented off, and nobody could get to them, and I firewalled the crap off of that. Yeah, people coming into your Internet of Things, you know who those people are. It's not random Joe Schmo needing in from the wireless. It's going to be dude from the maintenance department coming from his desktop into your Internet of Things. So firewall it off. I'll have an example of ACLs here in a minute, which is poor man's firewall. And I would just say, hey, allow maintenance into this network, deny everybody else. And that's again why we segment users according to like role. So if you have all your maintenance guys in one VLAN in one building or one place, you can say, oh, maintenance network, which is /24. Cool, you guys can get in here. Fine, I'll let you guys in. But nobody else. Keep it as specific as you can. Think backwards. Think, who needs access? And start there. And if anybody asks you for access, go ahead and have them do a little justification. If you ever want to see if somebody really needs access, make them talk to their boss first and then send it to you. That shuts down 90% of your requests that you're going to get. I threw VTP in here because I hate it. It burned me. So VTP, Virtual Trunking Protocol, that's what it stands for. In the old days of Cisco, they made it so that you had a master switch. The master switch had all the VLANs on it, and all the other ones were considered like slaves. Well, all you would do is change your VLAN settings on one switch, and it would push it throughout your entire network to all your switches. Well, the hiccup is it's all based on the lowest MAC address of the device on your network. So if you happen to bring in a new device, a new switch, with the lower MAC address, and it's set for VTP server, it will wipe out your entire VLAN settings across your entire infrastructure. I'm still bitter. It's been like 20 years. But you guys are going to kind of get some of the pain I've been through. So there's always a story behind every slide. So I tell people, just get rid of that crap. This I would call the availability side of information security. Something else I want to touch on was spanning tree. I always say spanning tree is the girlfriend that cheats. She's great when she's loyalty and she's doing her job, and then someday she steps out and your whole network just recalculating. So an easy way for you guys to mitigate this is to actually set spanning tree priorities. And my standard is 496 for the core so that the edges will stay edges. If you bring a new device on, it's going to come up as like a 32,000 number. So it's not going to overwrite the ones that have not been manually set. So I set those, the ones I know about, 28672. There should be no link between access going back to your distribution, but you never know. And there's the command. So I had my buddy Dwayne. He looked at my slides for me. If any of you guys use Splunk and you've ever searched for an answer on Splunk's website, Dwayne has probably answered it 50% of the time. He's a Splunk community member. He works with me. And we both work for a DC company, but we live like 20 miles from each other in Nashville. It's actually pretty awesome. So he comes in here and he sees this. And he goes, oh, you use Rapid PVST. I was like, yeah, that's what I always used. Well, he's like, PVST, per VLAN spanning tree, means that every time there's a topology change, if you have 1,000 VLANs, each VLAN is taking an individual calculation. But as we all know, all of our VLANs, pretty much we want them to go the same path. Well, he's like, dude, use MST. MST will give you the faster automatically into forwarding as the three, I don't even remember, but there's the 3 stages of calculation that spanning tree uses. Well, if you use MST, it'll do all those, but it's not per VLAN. So your topology only calculates one route for all your VLANs. So if you got a ton of VLANs, stick to MST. There's other reasons we can go into detail, but if you guys get bored and you're like, hey, I want to know about spanning tree, I can go into stuff like that. So I set 496. There's the commands. Easy. Hope you guys, go home, type that, read up on MSTP or MSTP. Anyway, it's one of those mornings. So here's the way I do all my networking, like the interfaces. Like your goal is core is just going to have the simplest routes. You're going to be summarized as best you can, and I just use /30 between my core and my distribution. So at Cisco Live about 10 years ago, I had this confirmed me, because in most places in the book, you route at the distribution level. That's just what you do. And your closets are all layer 2 switches, and they come back to distribution. Well, if you push your routing all the way into the closet, you have no spanning tree. So if you guys are getting weird, anomalous crap going on in your network that you can't figure out, you might want to look at this. If you push layer 3 all the way down to the closet as far as you can go, you've segmented off your traffic. So this closet cannot affect this closet, which will save you some serious headache and create those layer 3 boundaries. But the CCI guys that were teaching that class were like, yeah, push as close as you can. In recent years, we developed Trill. I cannot remember what the Cisco sells word is for Trill. Essentially, it's their new campus-wide stacking technology. It's based on a shortest path first algorithm and isn't really relying on spanning tree anymore. Okay, so access control list. You ever guys, so in education, we used to be the ones handing it to everybody because we'd either get compromised or our students were just being malicious. On every VLAN I have, I always do anti-spoofing. I look at what IP addresses should be coming from this VLAN so that nobody does a DDoS and says, hey, I want to go DDoS the White House, but I'm going to use some made-up IP address. So by denying any IP addresses that are not coming from the network they're supposed to be, it automatically gets dropped. So you have to put in this TCP any established, because access lists are not stateful. They're pretty dumb, but they're free, and you guys are probably all poor organizations. So if you cannot afford a firewall between your networks, just use access lists. We use what we got to use. The guys at the University of Utah and UEN are probably the kings of access lists, because I have not done one in years, and I popped that thing out in like 5 seconds because it's burned into my brain, because we were really poor back then. It was even the early day of firewalls. We had like 1,000-line ACLs. It was insane. Yeah.
What's the disadvantage of just moving your routing to your firewall right now? Most of your firewalls have routing protocols built into that routing level, and just do layer 2 on your firewall.
If you do not have high utilization and you're not pushing traffic, the firewall can handle the load, do that. If you got money, do it. I'd segment. The thing to worry about is if you have one firewall on your border and it's controlling all of your VLANs, all your users at the same time, it's all routing through that border router, your firewall is going to be your canary. If you start getting attacked, that border firewall reboots. Just how they're made to do. And that kills all your internal traffic. So if you still want to keep up your internal traffic, I'd have 2 firewalls, border firewall and an internal firewall. Yeah, exactly. And that's the way enterprise does it. You definitely have a firewall in front of your data center. And you've locked that down, and that goes through a different process to get ports opened and things. And most of the time, your border firewall is going to be static. You shouldn't really have a whole lot of changes. Depends on the organization. Some have lots. But yeah, that's my opinion. I'm not going to swear by it, but he's asking what the recommendation is. Should you have a firewall routing all your networks, or should you use access lists, things like that? And in my personal opinion, if you have the money, I would go ahead and firewall. You also get better logs out of firewalling. You just dump those to your thing. VMware has you can buy a virtual firewall that goes on VMware for, it's there. But that'll actually check your stuff as well. It's a lot less money than a physical firewall. But if you got money, go ahead and spend it. I think there's going to be a lot of value just in Intel that you can dump into your SIM. Exactly. So he's asking east-west traffic, do you get some benefit through next-generation firewalling? If you throw that in there, absolutely. Because usually, as you guys know, your infection starts on one machine and then it propagates to the others. So, exactly. That's right. So he's saying there's huge advantages to doing that next-generation firewall inside your network. Because we used to joke in some of my organizations where we had a hard outside and nice soft GUI inside. And that's the way a lot of our networks look, is we harden the outside firewall, and then once you're in, you own everything. And there's so many easy ways to get in nowadays that you do need to be vigilant. There's lots of upcoming software that helps prevent some of this that's been released. That's some cool stuff. In-game makes a cool solution. That stops east-west traffic unless you're supposed to be talking to each other. I don't know if you can see this very well. Again, I gave you the tiny URL. This is my firewall at home. So I don't want anybody being bad. And I also want my people to be going through my DNS servers. I don't want them to be picking their own DNS server. So on my access list, and I recommend this for corporations as well, pick the root domain servers that you want to use. Or if you're requiring everybody in the organization to use OpenDNS, which is very common nowadays, I just say you can go to OpenDNS, and that's it. So in my rule here, I say open the protocol's DNS. I did TCP 53 and UDP 53. We all know TCP is used for like zone transfers and stuff like that, but I add it there just because I feel like it. So I looked at my rule here, and it says, oh yeah, cool. I'm going to deny DNS on 53 and DNS on that's going to anybody else besides the ones I permitted. Well, I'm an idiot and realized I don't need to put those TCP ports in there if this is Palo Alto. It'll actually say anybody trying to do any DNS on any port, I'm going to deny it, unless it's one of my good DNS servers. And it's just low-hanging fruit, knocking that crap down. I actually have... Yeah, this is the slide I was looking for. So people always ask me what kind of malware blockers and ad blockers to use. These are the ones everybody recommends to me. uBlock Origin. Tell your, this is what I give to mom and dad. These are kind of the things. You have Quad 9, which is a new DNS that is the IBM, which actually provides filtering of phishing and malware sites. As those information comes up, they'll actually add it to DNS, so it will not allow you to go to it. I had a vendor actually confess to me and say those botnet lists are only good for like 9 minutes. So this type of thing may not be as good as we think it is, but it's better than nothing. If you're at home, this Blue Coat, since I do a lot of Blue Coat stuff, they have K9, which is free filtering, free category filtering for home. A good solution you want to monitor your kids. Cloudflare does have the fastest DNS out there. It's been proven now. They're 1.1.1 and 1.0.0.1. They do not provide any type of filtering for DNS. And then you have the OpenDNS, which is the family shield, which does the point filtering and gives parental controls. And I have here that it does no malware blocking, but you can get OpenDNS's inexpensive one for a monthly price that just goes off your IP address. That will do it. Here's something cool I want to teach you guys about. See how much time I got left? Oh, I got plenty of time. Sweet. I was all worried. Okay, so DNS over HTTPS. This is cool stuff. So I have AT&T fiber. I have a gig connection at home. Pay $85 a month. So glad I live in Nashville. So, but the deal is it's $30 more for AT&T not to sniff my traffic. AT&T nowadays, they will look at your DNS and they will inject ads into your page for you. And that's part of their deal, and you get charged $30 left. Well, screw that, man. I don't know what I'm looking at, but they don't need to be looking at it. So in recent years, this has come out. It's DNS over TLS and DNS over HTTPS. Every solution has their own flavor. So Cloudflare actually dropped in where you guys can download the client for your workstation. It's not natively done. If you have a WGRT router at home, like some open source dude, you can actually do that natively. But so far, I've not found a way to do it like on a commercial firewall, where it encrypts the DNS request from you to these servers. And that's a huge advantage. So whenever your DNS server does a request, that's all encrypted, which I'm all about that. We have OpenDNS does it, and they have their client. Quad9 uses Stubby Manager. And if I recall right, Stubby Manager has a Linux solution as well. I don't remember if I saw a Windows one or not. But this is pretty cool. Fight the man. Hide your traffic. Logging events. So here is a lot of detail. So I made Dwayne Splunk, dude. So a long time ago, I said, hey, I want to do Splunk. I want to learn what this is. So I was like, oh, I'll install it in a server, load it up, and I point all my syslog traffic to it. But no syslog traffic came in. I don't know if anybody's tried that and looked stupid like I did, but Splunk is not a syslog server. You must install syslog-ng onto a Linux server, and these are literally all the information on how to do that. It's kind of a pain, but I made Dwayne do it all for me and document it, because he does it for pro services. He's like $300 or $400 an hour, and might as well have him do crap for me when he's bored. And this is how you install syslog-ng. Step by step, starts taking syslogs. Each device gets its own folder, and so you can define those and say, oh, my firewall log's going here, my switch log's going here, my Active Directory log's going here. This is 100% free, does not cost you a dime. If you're poor, this is perfect start. When you're troubleshooting, you dump your firewall logs in there, you can search for denies, and you can hold them for a lot longer time than you can on your firewall. This stuff is pretty cool. The thing I did not do here is I did not do slides for the Splunk install because I was lazy and ran out of time. But Splunk, in this case, if it's for just a small installation and you're not fancy, you can just install Splunk on the same server that your syslog server is on, and then you can do the queries and the canned queries and create your own dashboards and get super fancy. So in like your home lab, or if you're a small school district, start this. I would absolutely say start logging all your stuff. There's been so many times where I've had to go back into logs because somebody did something illegal and I had to deal with it. I wanted to cover, this is not really security, but kind of is. So I do a lot of Cisco F5 load balancing. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this, but it's pretty brilliant. You have your load balancer, you have your pool of servers. All these servers would be my website. If I'm doing website changes or I want to test a config, you pull one of those servers, like server 4, out of the pool, and no customers would be hitting that. You test your code on server 4, and then once it's good, you think you're happy, you remove the other ones from the pool, and then you start upgrading them. We do this with web proxies. A lot of my designs, I have 10 Blue Coat web proxies, and according to what your usage is, this person goes to 1, this guy to 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's spread all the way across them, so I spread out the load. It saves me money by using, you can have multiple devices, and they're all used evenly. Yeah. Between those two? That's actually a question. Dude, I have no idea. I'm not a server guy. I pretend to know a little bit, but I assume that's probably what they're doing. That'd be what I would do. Rsync. What he's asking is to copy the data between your servers to make sure they're all identical. How do you do it? And he was mentioning rsync, And that seems like a totally legit way, because but most of the time they're static, right? So if you wanted an automated solution, you may be able to just copy and paste it your website as well, depending on how big you are and stuff. And the purpose of the server. It's like upgrade one, then go to the next one, upgrade the next one, so forth. A10 makes a solution as well that's significantly less than F5. Does not have half the features. The other thing you gain from like load balancers, they also had web application firewalls. Web application firewall is pretty cool because it will look at your traffic and say, oh, this is a normal request to your website. This is a normal post. This is how they fill out this form. And once you lock it down saying this is all normal behavior, anything else, it'll say no and deny you. You can actually import signatures in there as well and say, oh, I see the signature, it looks like an attack, and it will drop that as well. It's that extra layer of defense. Oh, Camp? Kemp. There's lots of stuff, lots of solutions I don't know. So Kemp is another one. Is it free or is it paid? Yeah.
Just one comment, just for everybody, the lab license with F5 is rate limited. You can only do
Yes. 10 meg. Yeah, it's rate limited. Palo Alto gives you PA220, and it's just normal rate limited. But yeah,
I think the renewal license on that Palo lab is like $100.
it's $100 a year. Yep.
So, and they were doing a sales promotion where they'd send you a power cord, and then if you had a sales pitch, then you get PA220 for free. So I got one for free that way.
Yeah. Thanks for sending out the Utah Saint list. He found a way to get PA220s for free by taking a sales pitch. We all hate this guy. All right, so I want to go over SSL Intercept for those of you that aren't used to it. This is a big part of what I do now. In corporations, I think that the marketing says 85% of malware is transmitted across SSL. If you're doing any type of IDS, IPS, any of that, you cannot tell what's in the packet if it's encrypted. You're just screwed. So all this fancy next generation firewall stuff has been negated. So what we've come up with is you get yourself an SSL Intercept. Palo Alto does it. You can do it with, but the CPU utilization runs pretty high on Palo Alto when you're doing it. But if you're, again, you have one solution, you want one tool, it'll work for you. You got to do some jangling. F5 also can do it, but it's kind of a weird configuration. I do the Blue Coat SSLV device, which has one purpose, and it's to break SSL. What I do is my client machines will create and establish a connection to the SSL Intercept box. This is an intermediate certificate. So it's not like your normal certificate. This one is like the Holy Grail of certificates, because I can rewrite any website I want and have you say, oh, you're good, because it is assigned to your certificate authority of your organization. So if you were at UVU, you would have a UVU certificate. Your computers, because they're part of the domain, will automatically trust UVU, and you will get a green lock as being perfectly fine. Then the other side, the SSL Intercept box, then calls out to your banking site and says, hey, I want to establish a connection. So it establishes your connection. You have no idea that it's been broken in half. If you have children at home that do Snapchat, guess what? There's no more privacy, man. You can bust that up. You can look through anything. When I do these, I do exceptions for healthcare. I do exceptions for online purchases and for banking. So those, I just say bypass the filter and go straight out. This is a cool technology. If we don't do it today, we all need to start finding solutions. Question?
So I was looking into that and talking to somebody about it, and they talked about a thing called like app pinning or something like that, where like on a cell phone, like, oh yeah, you're going to talk to our server, it's got to be this certificate, right? So
Yeah.
does this break
App pinning will break it. So what I have to do is I create that in the bypass rule. And you have to have a reason. Like all these things, I'm like, you want to bypass my SSL Intercept? You got to go talk to the boss. If it violates HR rules, like we block Facebook and stuff like that. Same thing. If you want to go to Facebook, you're going to have to get somebody higher than you to allow it to happen.
So, what's been your experience of doing SSL encryption? Obviously, make exceptions for banking.
Mm-hmm. That's certificate pinning. It sucks, but you have to make an exception for all of Google Docs. Somebody mentioned it to me in the last couple of days. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, there is something that screws up, and we whitelist Google Docs. But there's a attack surface. Yeah, somebody mentioned me as pinning. I haven't really looked into it. I just bypass it. But I know it sucks, but you know what? I'm low-hanging fruit. We got to win the battles we can win. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Symantec has their CASB, which is a box that does sandboxing and does some antivirus stuff, does some voodoo that ties into the web proxy. Oh, is that their all? Oh, DLP. Okay. Yeah, I don't do any DLP. I avoid that one. What's that? Why do I avoid it? Dude, I got too much crap in my head. I can't do any more products, man. There comes a time when you're just like my boss tried selling me on a Perl job. No. It's just, I'm just lazy. I think I pointed out in like the first slide how lazy I am. 3 Symantec projects and random stuff. Like, they sent me on like a 3-month contract working for a startup company on their SOC. And so I learned a crap ton about VPNs. Like, they had thousands of IPsec tunnels. And now I've purged all that information. This is something cool. My buddy Stephen Woods hooked me up with this the other. He does workman's comp claims, his company. And Microsoft Lapse. Has anyone ever heard of this? Because I did not hear of it until like a week ago. This is cool. What it does is, I copied and pasted this from the website. So the local administrative password solution provides management of local account passwords and domain joined computers. So the passwords for all your local admins are stored in AD. You install the Lapse service on a server, you harden the crap out of that server, and you can only log into it to get the local admin password for each device. So how many of you guys, when we're kids, you go into the computer lab, you trash the computer, you put your keylogger in there, you get the admin to come in, log in as himself, and fix the computer. So now you have domain creds. And you also have the local admin account, which is local admin on all the machines. We do not want this. So with Microsoft Lapse, you can set a timeout so every machine in your organization has its own local admin account. Then you go ahead and change that password every 2 weeks. And in order to get into a local admin on a machine, you go to this Lapse server, say, what is the password? You write it down, you go out to the site, you log in as the device. You never log in to a person's personal or desk workshop, not the personal one, but like their work desktop, because we can't trust our users. Use that one time, which seems to be one-time password, log into their machine, do what you need to do, then you go change that password back in Lapse to something else. Because if you log into your creds on somebody's machine, you don't know what kind of situation that box is in, because while we browse like legit websites, they may be playing Farmville all day and getting infected. So with Microsoft Lapse, there's some great videos on setting it up on YouTube that I would highly recommend. Just go take a look at it, become familiar with it, and this is pretty sweet. I'm a huge fan. Google Vault email backup. I brought this up because I have had to use this in the past. It's free. Google it. It's pretty much backs up your stuff. I have had many instances where disgruntled employees will go and delete their own email, export their email, do some shady stuff, and then I just go, oh, wow, I just hit restore and I pull that back. It's free for education. This stuff you guys may or may not seen. These are FC 242. These are the domains you should have in your networks to be a good net citizen. I slapped that in here because I was thinking of it. All right, NPS for Radius for Windows. I don't know if you guys use Radius yet for your network device login. I was really baffled by it, and I spent probably 3 weeks trying to get this to work at home on and off while I was doing my other job. And I created these beautiful like screenshots with documentation. And then I came across this dude's website, and he did 10 times better than I did. So I just said, screw it. I'm not going to put my slides up here. You guys have my slides. Click the link. He shows you how to do NPS. He shows you the commands to do for your Cisco. On your Cisco side, this is the lines you need for Cisco. And you can knock this out in under an hour and have all your boxes authenticated in Active Directory. It's pretty sweet. And I also was going to do Duo for you too. I'm like, hey, I'll throw Duo, two-factor authentication. First 10 users are free. Looked at their documentation. They have videos. They have all of this crap. So go, and I was going to break it out for you, but I don't have to. Go watch the videos. It does pushes to my phone. So when I log into my Palo Alto, because there's a Palo Alto video, it connects to my Radius. Radius kicks off a request to Duo. Duo sends me a push. Yes, Dave's allowed to log into his firewall. Stupid simple, and it's cheap. Like, you guys probably don't, a lot of you don't have more than 10 admins that need into your network devices. So horror stories that inspired this, if time permits. I think I got 3 minutes. There's my presentation if you guys want to go to it. In the last 3 minutes, I will tell you a story I was going to tell you. So I just worked for this lawyer. I had this employee who got disgruntled and deleted all the findings, all the work for a capital murder case. They deleted it on Monday. They had a deadline of Tuesday to submit all of this documentation. Well, this person, I don't know what they were thinking. They logged in as another user, and before they had left the organization, they deleted two-factor authentication because they had admin privileges. So they deleted the requirement for two-factor authentication onto Google, and they were able to delete this data. Luckily, with backups and things like that, we were able to restore those in time. What potentially worst-case scenario is this kid would have been found guilty and thrown in jail for life or put to death, and the lawyer would have been disbarred. So these are kind of like, there's some serious consequences if we don't stay up on these little things. The Google Vault, restricting rights to who can see what. Least privilege is no joke, and make people justify why they need their privileges. And pretty much you guys can take this home. I'll see about adding stuff to it. You can drop me emails. Let me see. Let's go back to the top. So my name is my Twitter is just at my name because I am not cool anymore. So you can hit me up on Twitter. I post like a tweet twice a year during SAINTCON. That's it. But you can follow all the people I do. They're a lot of nefarious, evil hacker people. Highly recommend Twitter for that. If you guys want to catch me later, questions, whatever, hit me up. But that's what I got for you guys. Hope it was helpful. Thanks.